I've told stories about Gee's Bend, Alabama before. About 20 miles south of Selma, the Alabama River takes a long bend and cuts off a lot of that area, bottomland. In the old days, back in the 1800s, during the days of slavery, there were a couple of large cotton plantations there. And when the plantations went under, and the slaves were freed, a lot of the people didn't have the ability to move or go anyplace, and so they just stayed. And it was then and has remained one of the poorest parts of Alabama. Camden, the county seat, is across the river. There's been a ferry off and on over the years, mostly off. School children who did live in Gee's Bend had to ride something like 40-45 miles to get to school in Camden. Catherine Wyndham grew up and lived all her life in Selma. Catherine was a fantastic storyteller. She died last year in her 90s. And one of the stories that she told was about Willie Quill from Gee's Bend. She met Willie years ago when she was collecting stories, and he was telling her about his growing up. He was born in 1928, which would put him about 3 years older than I am. And when she met him, he had become a deputy sheriff, the only black deputy sheriff in Wilcox County. He may still be the only one, I'm not sure. But he told her about the growing up years and how poor they were. One of the stories he told her was about how he got his first pair of shoes. He was 12 years old, had never owned a pair of shoes. His sister could wear her mama's shoes, but his daddy had to work, and so Willie had no shoes. And Willie used to, when his dad was working on the road, Willie would take his lunch to him. One day, he said it was a cold morning, and he was barefooted as usual, and he was taking his dad's lunch bucket to him. Miss Bessie Harrison ran a little grocery store. Those days, of course, the little store had just a little bit of everything. And Miss Bessie, who was up in years at the time, called out to him and said, "Willie, what are you doing going barefooted?" And he said, "I don't have no shoes." And she said, "You come in here." And Willie says, she took me inside the store and set me on a chair. And she reached up and got this metal thing and measured my feet. And then she started rummaging around in the back, finally came out with a pair of shoes. She said she took some Vaseline and rubbed into the cracks of my feet. Oh, it felt good. Got a pan of hot water and soaked my feet. He said, "Oh, nothing had ever felt so good." And then she tried on this pair of shoes. So they were a little big, but man, I was excited. The first pair of shoes I ever owned. She laced them up, dried my feet, put the shoes on, laced them up. Said, "Now you go home." And I said, I was so excited. I mean, I jumped up and ran straight home. And my mama, when I got home, my mama said, "What are you doing with those shoes?" And I told her, "Miss Bessie gave them to me." And she said, "You go back and tell Miss, did you tell Miss Bessie thank you?" "No, I forgot." "You go back and tell her thank you and ask her how much you owe." So I went back. I said, "Miss Bessie, thank you for them shoes," but he said, "How much do I owe you? How much is my daddy owe you?" And she said, "You don't owe me anything. I'm not even going to put it on the books. You just go ahead and enjoy them shoes." He said, "I thought I had died and gone to heaven." And then Catherine said, Willie stopped and paused a little bit. He said, "You know, Miss Bessie's over in the nursing home now. She don't remember much. She don't remember my name. I go by and visit her every once in a while. She don't remember me. But I remember. I remember how that was my first pair of shoes. And Miss Bessie Harrison, she passed just a little short time ago. I always will remember the rest of my life." That's a strong story. What happened meant a lot to Willie. The story meant a lot to Catherine. The story means something to me. But the reason that I tell it is because in the search for justice and peace, we really also need to consider the basics. Now, Miss Bessie Harrison didn't change the political or the cultural or the economic system of Wilcox County. She didn't change society. Nothing dramatic, nothing revolutionary, but a simple act of kindness and charity has made all the difference in the world in the life of Willie Quill. And you can't help but believe that it's made a difference in the character formation of a man who now has responsibility for maintaining law and order in that part of Alabama. I think it's great. Nothing dramatic, but I think it's one of the most powerful stories that I've ever heard. And I pass it gladly to you.